Hey everybody, I'm going to give everybody just a minute to sign in. I did you guys a favor and I took a shower and I straightened my hair. I put in some makeup and I have a cool light in front of me that I know some of you coaches have too, and that's why you look so good on your videos. So thanks for tuning in. I have, over the past couple days, well, even past week, a handful of people have either said something about dealing with some foot or ankle issues or shin issues, or actually contacted me and I'm starting to work with them or something. But it has a ton to do with the obvious situation, the fact that you want to run and you started running outside. And there's a lot to be said for having to do, for doing that the most effective way, and everybody's way is going to be different. So just to give you a little backstory, I'm dealing with some foot pain too, and I'm rehabbing it successfully, I think, hopefully. So I definitely get hurt also. So but rehab is really training while injured, so it's just figuring out what you can do. Anyway, so I have a few things planned to talk about, but I know it is long, isn't it? I definitely want to allow people to ask any questions, but I have some planned stuff, so I'm going to get through all the planned stuff and then just post your questions as you would like them to be answered in the little chat box, and I'll scroll through at the end, and then I can answer them. So we're going to talk about outdoor running versus indoor running and how to deal with some foot issues, as you know. All right, so if you are new to running outdoors, this is definitely an important thing to be listening to. And I define new as somebody who has not been running outside for more than a month prior to the quarantine. So if you primarily were working out at Orange Theory only and running only in there, and you just decided that you wanted to run outside, and I was one of them, so I get it. I hear you. So why is running outside different than running on a treadmill? I mean, for obvious factors, you're on a treadmill, so you're not running outside, so there's a difference. But why is it different? So muscles work differently, and they work a lot harder when you're running on pavement or outside. We're just going to say outside, because pavement, going from inside to outside, we're just going to leave it as inside versus outside, versus saying like pavement versus track versus turf, because it definitely makes a difference, but for the purposes of today, we're just going to say outside versus inside. So why muscles work differently? You have to propel yourself when you're outside. Your body is just moving differently because it's not at a steady cadence, so your muscles have to just respond a little bit differently, specifically the muscles of the lower leg. So a lot of the issues that people are having are pain on the shin, like right on the front, sometimes right on the side, and like right on like the inner side of the ankle bone, so like right in here, that's where I'm having some symptoms. Sometimes it's on the top of the foot, sometimes it's in the calf, or the Achilles on the back side of the foot. But all of those areas can be affected when you start going from inside to outside. Your body responds different to pavement on the pavement versus the treadmill. So there are plenty of different obstacles that our body has to adapt to. Uneven terrain, birds flying around. That was a dumb one. Not birds, but like things moving in your atmosphere. Okay, where you are, your body has to respond. So like different things happen, different things have to work to stabilize. And then hills are relatively unpredictable. You might not even realize it, but you're starting to go uphill. I mean, I've treated tons of Orange Theory members, and a lot of people are like, well, I can't do anything more than the flat road. Well, you're probably running on it. I don't know what the exact average would be, but if you're not running flat on the beach or near the beach, you are probably going like from 1% to 3 to 4 to 5, back down to 1. And so if that was something that was irritable for you before when you were on the treadmill, you're now doing that all day, or your whole run. So just remember that. So, and then paces are also harder to control for. So if you are constantly going, or you have your base, you're pushing your all out, you can definitely control for that with the little toggle. But when you're outside, sometimes you're running a little faster, sometimes you're running a little slower without even realizing it. Obviously, there's ways to track your paces, but it's not as easy as like pressing a button and going down to a 4 or a 3 or up to a 7 or an 8. So all of those factors play a role in why it's different inside versus outside. So to think about the people I'm trying to talk to, I mean, I know it's you guys, but thinking of a couple categories of people. So, and some advice based on those categories. So if you've been a regular runner inside and outside, you're pretty much good to go with running outside, but don't make any drastic changes further. So if you were running, like, let's just say, going to Orange Theory 3 days a week, maybe 4 days a week, and running outside twice, then that's 2 days of outdoor running. That's what you have to base your current plan on, is 2 days of outdoor running. No, don't change the terrain, don't change the speed, don't change the distance. Stay there. Let your body adapt to that. And a 5 to 10% change in difficulty level, intensity, frequency, number of days per week that you're running is what's recommended to decrease your risk for injury. So let's go to the next group of people. If you have been only running indoors, so if you've only run indoors and you were running 5 days a week and you were only running indoors, your indoor mileage does not equal your outdoor mileage. So yes, of course, it's still running, but remember all the factors that we talked about before. There's so many pieces that can come into play when it comes to being okay to go run outside. So, or to, there's so many factors to take into account. So what I'm going to suggest is that you want to figure out how your body responds to about 50% of what your indoor running mileage was. And I'm coming up with somewhat of a random, advice to give for everybody, because I know I'm speaking to a lot of different people right now, but I would take your amount of average running indoors, cut it in half, and that's what you can try for running outside. Now, I know it's been a month since we've been in this mess, and maybe some of you have already tried things, but just trying to give you a general guideline. But if you're hurt right now, that's not a guideline that I want you to go by right now. So I'm talking for people who maybe haven't started running outdoors yet, and want to, okay? Or maybe you are already there and now you know, okay, I'm doing what I can right now. That's good. Let's increase it. Go up by 5 or 10%. And then there's also the category of people who were never runners on the treadmill. You don't have an elliptical or a strider. You don't have a bike. You don't have a rower. So like, what do? Do I want to try running right now? No. Well, kind of. You can try running, but my suggestion would be to start with a walk-jog program. I would start with about 30 seconds of jogging. Okay, jogging doesn't mean a sprint or hills or just be on a flat road and jog. And then walk for a minute and repeat that for about 10 minutes. It's a little, not exactly 10 minutes because of the 30 seconds to 1 minute, but for about 10 minutes. And I would try that 2 to 3 days a week and see how your body responds for 2 weeks. Give your body a solid, 14 days to adapt. And then increase it by 5 to 10% on the intensity level, the distance, the speed, to work yourself up to being able to run. If you're that person, running is that sort of program is probably not going to give you that same cardio burn as the bike, the strider, the rower, but it's something. And then you can always buy a rower or a bike. But anyway. So that's my advice for people who really aren't dealing with any pain right now, but I know that some of you who might be joining in are wanting to know what to do with regards to symptoms. And so everybody's plan would be different in the way that the exercises are prescribed. You do have to think about exercise as a prescription. If I was a medical doctor prescribing medicine, you would want to know, or you would want very specific instructions with regards to how much dose of medicine you're taking. So how much of it, how many times a day. And so everybody is different with regards to prescribing exercise. So reps and sets really, really matter, especially when someone is recently injured. So I'm going to give just some general guidelines of the numbers of reps and sets to do for these exercises, but I want you to proceed with caution. If you are in pain, you're doing this stuff, this might not be what you should be doing. So just please don't take this as like the gold standard medical advice. We're going to go over the exercises now, and I'm going to move myself, my wonderful basement. It's from the 90s. All right, so one of the things you need is a mat and some sort of pole. So I'm going to use a kayak paddle. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside for a second. So one of the first exercises that I'm going to talk about is more towards Achilles pain or back of the ankle pain. And this is my stretch. I don't like to prescribe a ton of stretches. If you've worked with me, you know that. But this stretch can help calm the Achilles tendon down and the area that I was describing in the beginning where I was saying you get some pain right here. So you stand in a staggered stance like so, 1 foot in front, 1 foot in back, and you just literally rock forward and backward, and you bend your knees. So as you're bending your knees, you're getting, and if you don't have pain or any tightness, you're not going to feel a thing. Okay, so this is not something that you probably will feel like there's any benefit to, but if you're in pain, try this. So split stance, and you're rocking forward and backward, keeping the back heel on the ground. I like this as a calf warm-up too prior to running. So if you're someone who just wants a good warm-up stretch for the Achilles and the calf, this is it. And I would suggest doing about 30 of these per side. And you can hang out in this area. You can rock back and forth. So if I show you from the front, sort of rocking back and forth, doing a stanky leg here. And then I would repeat it on the opposite side, even if the opposite side is not painful. So that forward, backward rock for about 2 sets of 30 on each side. And for exercises like this that are wanting to calm things down, or that I would prescribe to calm something down, you're going to be wanting to do these multiple times a day, upwards of 3 times a day, but you do want to see how your body responds to it. So that's exercise number 1. The second exercise, and I'm going to use this so I don't have to worry about balance, it would just be a double leg heel raise hold. So I would suggest standing on a padded surface, and you go up and you just hold this position. And I would try to feel like your whole foot, all of your toes are pressing into the floor. You don't want to be rotated outward like this or rotated in. You want to be in neutral, and you're just holding it. And I'm not going like to my highest height. I'm going like middle of the range, just so I can feel like my calves are working. And if you do have some pain in your foot, especially on the back side, you are going to feel like there's a little bit of sensitivity there, and that's okay. So I would suggest holding it for about 10 seconds, 5 times. If that seems a little easy for you, or it doesn't feel like it's getting to the source, you can try it on one leg. So you just hold on to something for balance, you go up with 2, and then you hold it. Now this is obviously a lot harder on balance, but for me, I immediately start feeling my area of symptoms, so I know that this is probably the exercise I would choose versus the double leg. So the first version is the double leg, and the second version is the single leg. That would be a progression. You don't need to do both. And I like 5 sets of 10 seconds, 6 sets of 10 seconds to accumulate a whole minute. Again, something that should be done multiple times a day. The next one would be a toes elevated heel raise. So this is where the pole of some sort comes into play. So you take a yoga mat, you put it underneath, you put the pole underneath the yoga mat, you roll it up, you put your toes right on, I need another pole, hold on. You put your toes right on the pole. So the balls of my feet are not on the pole, my toes are not wrapped around the pole. If I had to give you a close-up, this is my big toe. My toes are on the pole, the balls of my feet are on the ground. And that's why you want to have a nice padded surface to do this. So I'm here, and I'm going up and down. And for my plantar fasciitis people, my heel pain, or that area of pain right on the inner side of the ankle bone, one of them, this one lights it up right away. So I go up and down very slowly, and I do about 20 of them. And for this one, it's really important to not roll your feet out. If you keep the pressure on the big toe side of your foot, you're gonna feel it a lot more. So as I'm doing this, if I roll my feet out, I don't really feel much in that spot. You wanna roll your feet in a little bit so you can really feel the pressure on the bottom of your foot, right through here, and then in through here, okay? I like that exercise even for people who don't have pain. Any runner, especially if you've had a history of plantar fasciitis, that is like one of the best exercises. And I don't know why I didn't know about it a long time ago when I used to treat more. Well, I didn't know didn't know about it a long time ago, but I have a ton of people doing that right now with really good results even from people who didn't really have foot pain, just for preventative measures. All right, the last one, which is also one that I just recently started doing. You need a wall, so I'm going to go over to my weight wall here with all our weights. So you put your back against the wall. Actually, I'm going to use this wall. Let me just turn you. Okay. So you put your back against the wall like so. You bend down a little bit. I can't even see my feet. Hold on a second. I'm going to come down on the floor. All right. So you don't need to see my upper half, even though I put on makeup for you. You can just look at my feet. All right, so you're leaning against the wall. You're going to raise and lower your feet. Now, if you have heel pain, this might not be that comfortable. You might want to grab your yoga mat and put it on the floor just so your heels can be a little more comfortable. So you're working on your shin muscles. Now, I've gone over this exercise before. Shin muscles tend to be the first ones that bark at us if you haven't been running outside, especially if your neighborhood is hilly. Now, this does not take very long to get really burny in through here, but if you're super strong, or even if you're not and you want to challenge, put some little baby weight, I shouldn't say baby weights, small weights, some of you use threes, small weights on your feet. It's not perfect because they roll a little bit, but oh my goodness, my shins burn like crazy. This is an awesome exercise for people who have had a history of ankle sprains. I'm one of them, who've had a history of just foot pain in general. If you lack ankle flexibility, like if you've ever been told your ankle flexibility is kind of crappy, maybe by a trainer or something, you say you need to work on your ankle flexibility, or your ankle flexibility limits your squat, which can happen a lot. That one is an awesome one for it. But that entire program would be a great place to start. The only one that doesn't need to be done as frequently is the last one, unless you're someone who's dealing with shin pain, because that last one is more of muscle building versus just working on like calming an area down. Again, a reason why a program like this has to be specific to the person and what they're dealing with. But I really like those 4 exercises. So where to, the first thing, taking a step back, if you're someone who wants to try to work on their feet and ankles and wants to keep running, or you're someone in pain, the first thing to do is you want to evaluate yourself. So you want to look at your previous status, what you were doing before all of this happened. I mean, we had to be forced to be working out at home and working out outside, and then your current status, so what you're currently doing, and then your goal, like what do you want to be able to do, and then create a plan to get you from your current status to your goal. But what happens if you're hurt? So some suggestions besides the exercises that I recommended. First, make an adjustment in the speed. Second, would make an adjustment in the distance. Third would be to change the intensity level. So let's say you have been, let's use an example, you've been running 2 miles at a moderate pace 3 days a week, and you're just going along and you start to feel some symptoms, you're not sure what to do, so you just stop running. That wouldn't be the best advice. You can make it yourself go a little bit slower. You can cut it down to a mile, so cut it in half. Or changing the intensity would look like still going that distance, but maybe breaking it up into 200-meter increments, or quarter-mile increments at a higher intensity level to actually make it a little more challenging, but you're not going at a faster pace, which can sometimes, the speeds can sometimes influence people's pain. So you can actually try to manage your own pain by just making those slight adjustments. The other thing is making sure you're incorporating a warm-up. I'm not going to get into like specific warm-ups, but just get your heart rate up and work on some of your leg muscles before you go out to the run. Like, you know, you guys know exercises like band walks, heel raises, high knees, butt kickers, lunges, just a handful of maybe 2 to 3 minutes of body weight movements to get your heart rate up and get your muscles warm, and then you can head out the door. There's a ton of running specific drills that you can do to warm up, but if you really want to just warm yourself up, just get your heart rate up, get your legs moving. And then lastly would be to add in some sort of lower leg exercise. Some specific questions that I've been asked specifically over the last week is, should I be wearing certain shoes around the house or just in general, or do shoes matter? They do to an extent. They do to an extent, but you don't necessarily need to make any adjustments. You don't want to make any drastic changes to your current status. Same as everything else. You don't want to make any drastic changes to your current activity level. You don't need to make drastic changes to your shoes. Let's take heel pain, for example. When you're dealing with short-term heel pain that just started, you might want to be wearing something like comfortable slippers, like those Ofu slippers, however you pronounce it. Those are super comfortable, and you can wear them around the house, but it's not something you want to be married to. You want to slowly get yourself away from that and get yourself back to walking around barefoot, or just what you normally were doing around the house. There are a handful of people that I've worked with currently and past who are coming to me for like long-term heel or foot issues, and they pretty much never go barefoot, and that's usually actually a place where I like to start, is weaning you off your indoor shoes. I'm not saying you have to go walk on gravel outside, but the weaning away from indoor support is a great method to get your feet stronger. So I would say that if you're someone who isn't dealing with pain but wants to improve your feet, start walking barefoot a little bit more frequently. But don't make a drastic change. If you are 100% indoors walking with shoes, don't go a full 24 hours without shoes, because you'll curse me tomorrow. Is stretching a good thing to do right now? So let's just say you're dealing with some foot or Achilles pain. Should I be stretching my calves? Long-term, prolonged stretching, like static stretching, stationary stretching for like 30 to 60 seconds is okay, but sometimes it can actually aggravate things more. So just don't yank on it. Just push into a little bit of tension and then only hold it for about 60 seconds. That can help, but it won't hurt. But if you really, really yank on things consistently, then you may actually aggravate it. I say may because some people really benefit from a lot of stretching, but it's more common that it actually irritates things or can make things worse. Should you be resting if you're feeling some symptoms? To an extent, yes, you want things to calm down. Rule of thumb for running is you don't want to be limping when you're walking. If you're limping when you're walking, or you can really feel it when you're walking and it's super uncomfortable, no running. You should be resting from running. And weaning back into running with some sort of run-walk ratio. And segue into that is how to return to running after being injured. If you're to the point where you're like, all right, I'm good, I feel like I can walk around, I feel like I definitely could run, don't go trying a mile. Don't go try a mile, because if it works and you can run the mile, good for you. Most of the time, it doesn't work. Most of the time, what happens is you get about 5-6 minutes in, it starts to hurt, you get pissed, and you have to walk home. Or you keep going, and you come home and have to put ice on it, and you're like, shit, I guess I have to do something different, or I guess my running career is over. That's what'll go through your head. But my best advice is to trial a run-to-walk ratio, and I would start with about 30 seconds to a minute of the running on the normal terrain that you normally go, your normal shoes, your normal everything, for about 10 minutes, and walk for about 1 minute to 2 minutes in between, and see how that goes for a whole week. Not every day. I would say every other day, or maybe 3 days a week, depending on how much you were running before. See how your body responds, and see if you can slowly add in the running time on top of that. Week after week. Again, 5 to 10% changes. Super slow, minimal increments of change. So, all right. Now I'm going to look if there's any questions. I don't see any questions, just some nice comments. Yep, my hair's long. What else we got? Kayak. I have a kayak paddle handy. Yep. And then, oh, thanks. I don't need makeup. Thank you. Well, if anyone doesn't have any other questions, that's it for today. But I hope it was helpful. I just want to try to help people prevent this stuff from going on, but also just give you some ideas of how to help it. Again, everybody's plan is different, and it is really, sometimes it's really hard to ask for help. So I get that. Example myself is I have something to do in the bathroom, like a plumbing thing. Well, it's not really plumbing, but and it's simple. I can do it. I can use YouTube, and I'm going to do it myself. But if it was a little bit out of my league, I would clearly call a plumber. But I would definitely be YouTubing it first. So to circle back, ask for help if you need it. I'm happy to help, and all of your coaches are awesome, especially in regards to helping things like I'm talking about, because one, they've talked to me about things, and we're all on the same page, which is fun. And two, you know, it's nice to know that you have a community that you guys can bounce ideas off of. Question. Oh, you're welcome, Nicole. I've gone through 3 new pairs of running shoes, only up to 2 miles at a time to try out new shoes. Should I be breaking running shoes in differently? So, running shoes, to be honest with you, I don't know how much they need a break-in. And I wish I had a better answer besides I don't know. But most of the time, you don't need to break them in. As long as your body is used to running that distance, you should be okay. If you are like a hardcore runner, when I say hardcore, I'm talking like if that's your primary mode of exercise and you're like a competitive runner, you run a lot of races, it is recommended that you have 2 different shoes, even if it's 2 different pairs of shoes, even if it's the same shoe. So you get like your favorite running shoe and buy 2 pairs of the same shoe, and you can alternate the shoes. That actually has been proven to be pretty effective in keeping you from having to buy like too many shoes, and then also keeping your feet healthy when you're running. But let me just make sure I understood that question. I've gone through 3 new pairs of running shoes, only up to 2 miles at a time to try out new shoes. So I hope I answered your question, Jamie. I wouldn't suggest changing the way you're breaking the shoes in. I think you're doing fine. And Diana, yeah, it is good to run outside. I completely agree. But I know because the fact I know you do run outside regularly, so I'm glad that you're enjoying being outside. But again, something that's important to understand is going from inside to outside is different, so you just want to make sure you're weaning in appropriately. All right, Jamie said, I'm afraid of longer runs to cause foot and back pain. So going back to some of the stuff that I had said, any time you change what you're doing, you're putting yourself at risk for something popping up. Doesn't mean that you're destined to have the symptom if you make a change. And not everybody who makes changes in their routine is going to have pain or going to create a problem. But you're more likely to create a problem if you do make a change. So let's just use some easy numbers, for example. Let's just make it easy and say you've been running outside on average about 5 miles per week prior to the quarantine, and now that's all you have to do. I wouldn't suggest making a change that's much more than like a 10, maybe 20% change, as long as you're not dealing with any current injuries. I wouldn't make it more of a change that's more than 10 to 20% over the whole week. So let's say you were running, let's just say 6 miles a week. So let's say 2 miles each day for 3 days, spread out the course of the day. But you want to go on like a longer run. I would suggest having your longer run be somewhere around maybe 3 miles, and then decrease the others so you're not increasing your total mileage per week, and gradually increase from there. With my patients that are currently trying to return back to some higher level running, I really don't increase their weekly mileage more than like a half a mile, especially if they're upwards of like 10, 12, maybe 15 miles a week, because there's just no reason to make that drastic change at all. And you can just look at your total miles per week to try to figure out how you want to make that change. And I have actually a little spreadsheet that I might share with you guys. So if you're interested in just tracking your weekly mileage, I have a little spreadsheet that I can share with you guys. So if you want to just direct message me if you're interested in that, and I can just email it to you. And I might even just share it on the page. But just let me know if that's something that interests you, because it's easy and it just tallies it up, and then you don't have to think, and you can just save the sheet. So Jamie, I would just not make a huge change. If you want to do a longer run, just make sure your total mileage per week is not much different than what you were doing before. All right, Annie, what would you recommend for occasional top of the foot pain while running outside? So earlier in the video, I showed an exercise. I'll show you one exercise. So earlier in the video, and I'll just show it again, you need some wall space, and you either need a pair of, I went on the floor for this. Hold on. So you need some wall space and if you really want to make it harder, you need a pair of small dumbbells. But you lean against the wall, knees bent a little bit, and you raise your toes up and down. Now, a lot of times people get top of the foot pain because when you're running outside, there's a lot more that these muscles and these toe muscles have to do. And this exercise specifically targets this whole area. And the way you would make it harder, like I said before, would be to put some small hand weights on your toes. Obviously, it's a little hard to keep it on, but if you go slow, it will stay on. And holy crap, my feet are burning. And if you're specifically dealing with top of the foot pain, making sure that your big toes are flexed as you do this is a really great way. And you could probably even do this and just hold the weights. Oh my gosh, now my quads are burning and my shins are burning. I'm done. So that would be my suggestion, and I would recommend at least 20 repetitions of that for 3 sets. Once a day, maybe twice a day. Well, twice would be a little too much. I would say once a day. That would be top of the foot pain exercise. That's just one. I mean, again, there's a handful of other things to be done, but that would be one that I would suggest. Thank you. Oh, it's fine. Everybody wanted to hear it twice. All good. Any other questions? I'll wait for you guys if anyone has any other questions. Even if it's not foot pain questions, I have some time, so if it's other areas of pain questions. So I'm going to be posting this to the group, so hopefully people will watch it afterwards. And I am going live once a week on Thursdays about different topics, and so feel free to message me if you have a topic specific that you want to, a specific topic that you want talked about. And I do put out a bunch of other content on my Instagram, so a little plug, just head over to Infinite Potential PT, follow us on Instagram, and we're doing a lot of different things virtually, obviously, because of what's going on, but we have this thing called a free webinar next Wednesday night, if anyone wants to join, and it is all about injury prevention, but just head over to our Instagram and there's more information on that. Ooh, we got a question. Inner ankle pain, will water rower irritate that same area? So, good question. Sometimes it can. So sometimes that area can get irritated because of the way that your foot has to bend as you go towards the rower. So my suggestion would be to just limit the distance you're going towards the rower. But Nicole, I know we've talked a little bit, so you might be past that point, so you might be okay. I would just test it out for like at a moderate intensity for maybe 10 minutes. Now, it's kind of a long time to be on the rower. Maybe 5-10 minutes to see how things go and see how you respond the next day. And if you're not sore, then you're good to go and you can increase it a bit. If you are sore, maybe that was too much. But it has a lot to do with the how your foot returns to the rower and how much flexibility your ankle needs. And that can get a little irritated based on that. You're welcome. Should you run if you have back pain? Coach Allie. Is that for yourself or somebody else? I'm just kidding. So in general, it totally depends. Should you be running if you have back pain? It totally depends. I mean, if it's not increasing, if you go out and you're going for your run and it doesn't increase while you're running, you're okay. I like to use a 24-hour rule of, if you feel some symptoms, let's say today right now it's 1:19. So if you go out for a run right now, your back is bothering you a little bit, you come home, it's a little bit sore, you wake up the next day, you're back to baseline, you probably didn't do anything wrong. The amount of activity that you did was fine. It's really all about how much activity your body can handle, and that not making drastic changes even when you're dealing with current pain. You don't want to go try something new or something different, and maybe even you want to back off a little bit. So even with back pain, it would be something like trialing a run walk to see if your body can handle that amount of activity. And if it can, if you're fine, 24 hours later, then you did a good amount of activity. So I would say that would be my answer is yes, you can run with back pain. If it worsens during, you probably should make a change. If it doesn't worsen during and you're no worse the next day, you're good to go. Let's see what else we've got. Upper or lower back. So the same thing applies. with regards to upper back pain. You do have to use your upper back to breathe, to be upright when you're running. So, and sometimes you can get some weird crampies, that's a great word, some weird cramping sensation in your upper back when you are running, just based on the fact that you're just breathing heavy, and you end up sort of running like one of these turtles down the road. So trying to adjust your posture, trying to be upright and vertical when you're running. When we're at Orange Theory, we're typically, able to see ourselves in the mirror. Outside, you don't have that. So just continuously reminding yourself to be upright, pull yourself tall, keep your elbows or your arms pumping forward straight. It'll adjust your posture, which might help. And then same thing, so lower SI joint pain, again, if it's not worsening when you're running, then I would say whatever you're doing is fine. Lower SI joint pain can come from hamstring issues, glute issues. It can be specific to the actual joint itself, so it really all depends. But I like to just make it easy and say that doesn't worsen, you're okay doing the activity. If it does worsen, you have to make an adjustment with regards to speed, distance, intensity, and duration. So, any other questions? Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. And if you'd love to do it, head over to my Instagram, Infinite Potential PT, and just follow us. We've got a lot more content going out there, but I'll be here weekly. Every Thursday, sometime in the afternoon, just giving you guys some info, and I'm happy to take suggestions for next time. Maybe next time we'll talk about back pain or something. So, well, thanks everyone for tuning in. It was nice to see some familiar faces, but enjoy the rest of your day, and get out there and run if you can. Take care.